This is The Joe Gaither Show on BamaCentral.com.
Good afternoon, Tuscaloosa, Internet World, West Alabama. How are you doing out there? This is The Joe Gaither Show on Bama Central and BamaCentral.com. You're watching us on YouTube, on Facebook, or on Twitter. You're listening to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or on Amazon. I am, of course, Joe Gaither. You are the listener, the viewer. We appreciate everybody watching us and listening to us on the Joe Gaither Show on Bama Central and BamaCentral.com. You can find us at Joe Gaither 6 on all the social media machines. You can send us your comments, questions, queries, and complaints, or compliments if you have a compliment. We got to throw that C word in there as well. We're going to have a lot of fun today. It's Wednesday. We've had a pretty good little week so far, recapping Alabama's Saturday win over Mississippi State, and now we are right on the precipice of Alabama and Auburn tonight, 6 p.m. on ESPN, and you'll be able to follow it at BamaCentral.com. Follow us on Twitter or X at BamaCentral. Follow us on Instagram at BamaCentralSI and on Facebook at Alabama Crimson Tide on Sports Illustrated. You'll be able to follow my friend Matthew Gibson and Blake Byler down there in the jungle tonight. Cannot wait for a big-time matchup tonight. And to get us going with it, we're going to find our friend Will Miller. Will Miller, you can find him on the X Machine at Real WB Miller. He's writing all kinds of things for us at BamaCentral.com. He's about to get really, really deep into baseball. Will, how's it going, man? How's your Wednesday?
Hey, feeling good. Can't complain. Really good weather outside for a change, and I'm glad about that because it rained towards the end of last week, and I'm not a fan of that, but I've had a pretty good day so far. Like I said, feels good outside, good start to the day. So overall, in pretty good spirits. Week's going by fast.
Week is going by fast, and Jeremy Scott gives on the Facebook machine, well, actually X, gives us a lot of things to look forward to this week, chiming in on the Alabama basketball game tonight, and then, of course, softball getting going. Oh, my gosh, if you haven't thought about softball, it's time to start thinking about softball, so you can join in Jeremy Scott's comments right there at Joe Gaither 6, and we will, of course, cover softball as well on the program. I'm very, very interested to see how the team responds to a little bit of a new coaching staff and really get going Team 28. But Will, you had a fun little weekend. Let's wind us back a little bit. Look, I know we are the home of Alabama Crimson Tide Sports right here on BamaCentral.com, and we cover Alabama, like all things Alabama. And it's not really the University of Alabama sport, but Friday night in Birmingham, you were up in Birmingham. What was it, the BJCC? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
SmackDown was live. Okay, for everybody who doesn't watch the show or listen to the show regularly, I do like wrestling. I enjoy watching wrestling as my trash TV I'll put a little wrestling on and kind of zone out and, oh, sweet, Cody Rhodes. Oh, sweet, I'll check back in here and there. I had thought about going up to Birmingham, and then it kind of just snuck up on me. How good of a time? Obviously, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson making an appearance. Tell us about SmackDown in Birmingham.
It's a great experience. I've been to 3 of them, and this one was the fullest, a sellout crowd. Great to see. It was actually my first time seeing all the things around the arena, such as the concourse and things. I've been there since the renovation. I've been there a number of times, but as a media member. So new experience, bit of a new experience for me. The vibe was great. Crowd was pretty hot. You never know what you're going to get with some of these shows. But it was a good show. It was leaked beforehand that The Rock had been spotted in Birmingham, which if you were on social media at all on Friday night, you're connected with any Birmingham anything, you probably saw at least a whisper of that. And so those who had seen that were expecting that maybe he would at least be referenced, if not directly appear on the show, which eventually, of course, he did. And that was electric. Definitely the loudest wrestling moment I've been a part of, and a lifelong memory. And then, of course, the controversy it's caused afterwards on social media and has been picked up by a lot of mainstream outlets, has been something to see, and to be there witnessing all of that live is something I won't soon forget.
Oh, let's chime in. Wendell Hare jumping in on Facebook. WWE is only worth watching the first few minutes and the last few minutes. I absolutely wholeheartedly agree with you, Wendell. I mean, as a mild fan, I definitely agree. Will, what about you? I mean, the last few minutes of SmackDown were absolutely incredible. The Rock doesn't even say anything. He comes out to the ring and stares down Roman Reigns. Nothing is said. They go off the air. And then The Rock addresses the crowd. If you want to do anything magical, you got to go to the Magic City, and everybody explodes. Last few minutes, just off the chain.
Well, it was a great moment. The Rock and Roman Reigns has been touted as a potential match for years. Roman Reigns has been a champion, the world champion in WWE for about 3.5 years now, uninterrupted. And in that amount of time, there's been 3 WrestleManias going on 4, and every year people want The Rock to come back and wrestle him. And it's seen as like the crowning moment for the NOI family and for Roman Reigns to ultimately go over as one of the most dominant stars of all time, which he's already been booked as. It's a dream match. People have wanted it. Emphasis on, well, I say people did want it, emphasis on did want it, because now they're mad. But to witness the face-off in person was unbelievable. A lot of people, and I'm one of them, thought it would never happen because, I mean, The Rock, he's one of the great wrestling personalities of all time. He's a great actor, but he isn't a spring chicken. So you really don't know if he's ever going to do this type of stuff again, particularly when he's so entrenched in Hollywood. So it was cool to see. And the crowd bought into it 100%. They popped for it. They love The Rock in Birmingham. And I genuinely like to believe most people did not think he would be showing up.
Well, let's dial it back into Tuscaloosa, to the University of Alabama, because, I mean, wrestling's fun, and I do put it on from time to time, mostly as I want to put something on my TV where I don't have to pay attention that much. But tonight, we're going to be paying attention. Oh, my gosh, 6 p.m. on ESPN2, right down there in Neville Arena, Alabama and Auburn. We talked about it on the show a little bit yesterday. We talked about it on the show a little bit on Monday. I'm feeling the jitters. I'm feeling the buzz. I'm feeling the nerves, Will. Now, we are not going to be down there in Neville Arena, but you've been down there before. How wild will it be, 1 to 10, inside the jungle tonight?
Well, it's going to be absolutely crazy, assuming the Auburn fan community can even afford tickets.
I saw that.
But the jungle is a tremendous atmosphere. Student section right on you. Nate Oates did say to this preview press conference, it's not necessarily something that Alabama is used to in Coleman Coliseum, which is a whole separate can of worms that I can't even tell you how many times people have had that discussion, including myself. So that's a separate rabbit hole that we won't go down at this exact instant. But one of the more imposing environments, and it does play a factor in college basketball. Probably has the best home court advantage or home venue advantage in terms of how games are impacted in all of sports that I can think of off the top of my head. It plays into games, has an effect on the outcome in ways that are really going to vary based on the configuration of the arena. And when they're right on you like that, it's going to be more profound. But Alabama did slay that particular dragon last season. Different team, but I mean that's got to give this current team confidence that they can go do it again. Still, it's a place the Crimson Tide has struggled to find success in past years, and the road games have been difficult. I see that comment right there where, the Georgia game was a very bad start. The Tennessee game, the worst game this team's played all year by a mile, was on the road. And nothing about that was pretty if you're an Alabama fan. Rebounding, turnovers, everything, poor defense, everything, nothing clicked in that game. So that's half the battle is acclimating to the environment and facing down what you're dealing with in terms of the raucous fans, in terms of your opposing players that are defending their own home court. There's certainly something there that adds to the motivation for those players, and you're you're dealing with a lot more than just playing basketball if you're going on the road in an SEC game in February.
How can Alabama build off of what it's done the last game and a half? Reggie hits it correctly right here on our comment section about starting better than what they did against Georgia and definitely better than what they did against Tennessee. But how can this team build off what is done the second half of the Georgia game and really the entire Mississippi State game? Mississippi State and Auburn are not entirely different. I mean, Mississippi State struggles from three-point line, struggles offensively, and Auburn doesn't all. I mean, that's not their strongest suit. Obviously, Janai Broome is very, very dangerous as a post player. They've got better three-point shooting than Mississippi State, but they're similar in just in style as far as wanting to play inside out, wanting to play inside. And you heard Bruce Pearl the last week and change. Oh, we got too many guys who are shooting the basketball. We got to have shoot less if your shooting percentages are not very good. So but how do you build it? Because look, that second half against Georgia, oh my gosh, that was championship mindset. That was championship level. We are down. The chips are down against a team we shouldn't be down against, and we're going to dig back in. The second half was really, really brilliant. And then against Mississippi State, I mean, is Mississippi State in Alabama's realm? Nah, maybe on some days, but not really. Not on most days. But the effort, the defense, you turn them over 18 times. You got 19 fast break points. You beat them up on the offensive glass. And sure, Tolu Smith had his 23 points. So Janai Broome tonight will probably get his 25 points, but you got to carry over the effort, the defensive effort. What's the key to if Will Miller's Nate Oates, if you're assistant coach Will Miller and you get to talk to the team or you get to draw up the game plan, what's the key to sustaining the momentum?
Well, there's not really a blueprint for this because, I mean, Mississippi State is a team that is different from Auburn in a lot of key respects. Auburn is a well-coached top-to-bottom team. They play great in the second half, as good as anybody in the country. Mississippi State was, totally listless by that point in the previous game. And Mississippi State's a team that struggles to score. And while Auburn might have off nights shooting the basketball, they're a team that's going to get on you offensively because they can. And at multiple levels more so than a team like Mississippi State can. Georgia's a much improved team. I think Alabama underestimated Georgia just point blank, which is ironic considering even at their worst, Georgia still beat Alabama in Athens. But I digress. If it comes down to coaching, I mean, I would say I would want to take the fight to Auburn in the paint. I would, and I know that's not exactly the Nate Oates style of basketball to go hard inside for 40 minutes. They want to get the perimeter game going, and that's been a tremendous asset to this team. Rylan Griffin in particular. You think of Latrell Wrightsell, Jaron Stevenson have been great from outside recently. Those are some of the names that have affected the game in that way, and that's still going to be a part of the attack, but if a team's going to try to get inside on you, which Auburn did to great success in the first Iron Bowl of basketball, one could argue that the only reason Auburn lost is because Auburn took too many threes. If you're Alabama, you almost want to fight fire with fire because they have the tools to do it, particularly with Nate Oates saying, we know Bruce Pearl had his little comments on this, that Nick Pringle will be available to play. Don't know if he will play. It is possible, but he was, he's been a threat on the alley-oops this season. He really
just want his 5 fouls tonight, right?
He was able to make it work against Creighton. I mean, he's going to foul, right? I mean, he'll have, 3 or 4 fouls at least. That's been every game this year. And we'll see. We don't know if he will play for sure or not until 6 p.m. on ESPN. So
what do you think, Will? Will we see Nick Pringle? I'm going to say yes.
I think so.
I think he's going to give you. I think he's going to be called upon from anywhere from 8 to 12 minutes, 8 to 13 minutes. Can you give us 3.5 fouls and can you give us 4.5 rebounds?
If he can go inside and score consistently and not foul for extended stretches of the game, he might play for even longer than that. Sometimes in these types of games,
scoring is not really what you need out of him. He's got plenty of scoring
in these types of hostile games. But I mean, he had double-digit points against Creighton, going inside and slamming the ball on alley-oops. I mean, if you can do that again, why wouldn't you?
Well, one big thing from 2 weeks ago was in the second half, Grant Nelson seemed to find his offensive stride, seems to find his offensive, his lane on this basketball team in the second half against the Auburn Tigers. And it started with an air ball three that was offensive boarded, and then he got kind of a pass on a cut where he dunked it on a reverse dunk, and it kind of sparked his, oh my gosh, I can play in this league, this SEC league where these boys are a lot bigger than they were at North Dakota State and stronger. And so from that moment, I mean, we're 2 weeks from that game? Yeah, you played. Yeah, 2 weeks ago, Ryan Williams recommitted to the Alabama Crimson Tide. But you're 2 weeks away, and you've seen Grant really, I mean, the second half against Georgia, he played pretty well against Mississippi State. If you can get Grant Nelson to give you that 8 to 15 point range, if you can have him contribute in that 7 to 15 point range, and you get to the free throw line 3, 4, 5 times because his free throw shooting is pretty strong. This basketball team, look, over the last 2 weeks, I have gone from, this team is meh, this team is talented, and they got a good offense, to, this team has some character. This team has some character, and they're starting to figure out the chemistry and how they all fit together. I said, Will Miller, that this year's basketball team is starting to get into the realm of the last two SEC championship teams that Nate Oates has had, and a lot of it is due to Grant Nelson and his growth in the SEC play. What do you make of the Great White Hope and how he's come along the last couple of weeks?
Well, I mean, the team as a whole has been as good as anyone over the past number of weeks, winning 10 out of the last 11 games. But Grant Nelson, yeah, he's been a big part of that, and he's somebody that a lot of people expected to be a big contributor this year. And I think he's had varying problems. I think he is starting to come out on the right side of his injury. I think he's been playing hurt, or had been playing hurt, and that's part of it. That changes the game significantly if you're a basketball player and you got a hurt leg. I mean, even for me, my highest level of experience is at the rec level. And I've played on a hurt leg before, and I mean, it changes the game.
You're a stud. You're a stud.
I'm inclined to agree, but I might be a little biased. But I think the biggest thing is confidence.
What did the newspapers write about your rec league playing through injury?
Just that my dynamic presence has really bolstered the teams that I'm on. But I think Grant Nelson's just gotten so much more confident. The team has appeared to gel better. Success will do that. Success will build you up mentally and make you feel like you're ready to take on certain challenges like SEC play, like hostile rivalry games on the road. But he's an experienced basketball player, and I think in terms of getting right, he knew what he had to do. He's committed to it, and you're starting to see the results. And who knows where he goes from here, but a big game tonight could be another statement for him. Scoring wise, yeah, if he gives you 15 points, you feel great if you're Alabama, with so many other scorers and perimeter playmakers that have really shown up in the last few games. Like I mentioned some of those names a few minutes ago. But he will have to factor into the game for Alabama to win. That's for sure.
All right, so I'm going to throw 3 guys at you that you cannot pick, and 3 guys that you can pick tonight for the most important player on the Alabama Crimson Tide. Okay, obviously Mark Sears, SEC Player of the Year. He is what he is. You can't choose Mark Sears. He's going to be – you need to have the 18 to 22 from Mark and the nice steady Eddie leadership from Mark. You can't pick Ryland Griffin because he's liable to go off 4 for 4 from the three-point line again like he did against the Auburn Tigers. And you can't pick Aaron Estrada. So 3 guards you can't pick. Those 3 guys have been very consistent for the Alabama Crimson Tide, and I don't want our guest, Will Miller, to choose the low-hanging fruit. I want you to go off the board here. Who is the most important player tonight for the Alabama Crimson Tide? Is it Grant Nelson? Having a good performance from Grant Nelson both ways. You're playing against Janai Broom, and you've got to put in your own 8 to 15 points on the offensive end, and you got to rebound the basketball. And you got to stay out of foul trouble? Or is it Latrell Wrightsell who has found his way into the starting lineup over the last 2-3 weeks, but playing that 4-guard lineup when Trelly, oh my God, when Trelly's shot is on, that dude he can fill it up really, really quickly. Or is it the true freshman, the should-be high school senior, Jaron Stevenson? Jaron Stevenson over the last 2 weeks has stretched the floor so much. He was, 4 of 6 from beyond the arc against Mississippi State on Saturday, and he has kind of found his lane of Noah Clowney light, of Noah Gurley light. He's, remember, the kid is 17 years old. But let's give yourself one of those 3 guys. Let's assume that Mark Sears, Aaron Estrada, and Rylan Griffin both have a B+, A- game. A pretty solid performance, as we would expect out of those 3 guys. But, Grant Nelson, Latrell Wrightsell, and Jaron Stevenson, they've been a little bit of a wild card type player for this basketball team throughout the season. Some games really, really good. Some games not so hot. Will Miller, which of those 3 guys, Grant Nelson, Latrell Wrightsell, or Jaron Stevenson, is most important for the Alabama Crimson Tide to come away with a win tonight?
I'm saying Jaron Stevenson. He's a great talent, one of the most versatile guys on the team. And I mean, his ceiling, seems to be very high. But separately from that, he's played great, like you mentioned, over the last couple of weeks. He's good both ways. I know defensive effort is something that Nate Oates has harped on that's really starting to pick up. And you can imagine he's hammering that in practice, each and every day. It's something he's consistently talked about. But Jaron Stevenson, yes, he can score the basketball from outside. And that's what Alabama has to have working to even be competitive in this game tonight. He had a great game against Mississippi State. I think that he'll show up again and be an important piece. I think that this is his moment to kind of put his stamp on an SEC game, even more so than he already has started on the track to doing. But it's a different level, like I said, when you're on the road in a rivalry matchup and you're able to turn in a big performance. Well, this could be that for him.
All right, and one more kind of sub-thought off the Jaron Stevenson thought. He's improved. His game has been improving slowly but steadily. I think in August, everybody expected Jaron Stevenson might be a one-and-done because of his reclassification. Mid-November, early December, people thought, no way, this guy's got to have more development. Now, over the last couple of weeks, you've seen some of that growth. Is Alabama in danger of losing Jaron Stevenson to a one-and-done type player, much like the Noah Clowney ascension that he made last year? I mean, the middle part of the year last year, nobody thought Noah Clowney was going to be a one-and-done guy. Towards the end of it, it was obvious that he was going to the NBA. Are we on that same track with Jaron Stevenson?
Tough to say. Noah Clowney, he's a guy that has a very unique set of skills. And he's not had extended NBA time yet, but of course he was a first-round pick. He played himself into a huge opportunity. He capitalized on it. Jaron Stevenson may well replicate that. He's one of the most talented guys on the team in terms of pure ability, and at the age of 17. Now, the question in my mind is, does he want to let himself mature a bit, take that extra year to when he's supposed to be a college freshman, quote unquote, play out that year and then go, because I think he could only get better from here. And for him, that's high up on lists of best players in the country categories. Does he want to do that? Does he want to take a chance on himself? These are the questions that him and his family and others are going to have to answer. And I'm sure it'll be talked about if he keeps ramping up the production, keeps showing out, keeps being an impact player on this team. Of course, you can't avoid those kind of discussions, particularly when you have a guy that some would classify as a sensation, depending on what he does from here on out. So it's a legitimate question. As of right now, though, I'm not really certain of anything, nor would he probably be. I mean, I was 17 once. I wasn't certain of anything. I can tell you that for certain.
Well, and Will, this is a good problem for Alabama basketball to have. I think a lot of people, you think about, we want to keep him. Alabama needs to keep him, this, that, and the other. To continue to put players into the NBA draft, to put players into the lottery, to put players into the first couple of rounds and getting picked. I mean, it's not quite to the Nick Saban 2008 through 2015 but you're getting to that track. Coach Oates is getting to that track where, and you see it in the next year's recruiting class with Deron Reed and Aiden Sherrill. They're getting the top level guys, and if they move on in 1 year, it's more of a celebration of Coach Oates and his development rather than, oh, crud, we lost out a guy. I think it's a really good thing to have guys mentioned, oh, maybe he jumps in, maybe his development jumps in. I cannot, maybe it is my gum glasses, but I cannot be more effusive in my praise of Coach Oates through his 5 years.
Well, yeah, I agree that it's a double-edged sword because, of course, you want to see those players play. I don't know anybody that would turn down having Brandon Miller on their team for 4 years. But you look at a talent like that. Let's use him as an example. I remember when the NBA's Alabama representation was JaMychal Green, and that was it.
Yeah.
And JaMychal Green was a good college player, and, he worked his way into the NBA. JaMychal Green did some time in the D-League.
Do you remember when it was just Mo Williams in the NBA? Like, that was it.
And JaMychal Green, he's free agent right now, but he's had a really, really long pro career. So shout out to him. He's a guy I've always liked. But, then you get to the past, recent number of years, and you get guys like Herb Jones turned into a force under Nate Oates. He was, an Avery Johnson recruit, came in under Avery Johnson. But he turned into the best defensive player in the country, might be the best defensive player in the NBA. That's something that he developed under Nate Oates, and in a COVID season, no less. What he did was remarkable. So many other names. You look at Josh Primo, who went into the NBA and was stunningly picked as high as he was. And that's another really young guy. That's a guy that's really young that a team took a flyer on, and he showed some great stuff. The time he did play. You look at Brandon Miller and Noah Clowney getting drafted in the first round in the same year. That was unthinkable, 7-8 years ago for Alabama basketball to have two guys get their names called in the first round, and one of them was a lottery pick. And watching a talent like Brandon Miller play, twice a week, knowing he's going to be that and he's on Alabama, this was unthinkable. And the things that have progressed since Nate Oates became the coach, I think some people fail to realize the significance of it. And you're absolutely right, Joe. It is a good problem to have because, it used to be watching Selection Sunday, hoping your 18 and 15 team got a 10 seed, and that was a remarkable achievement. Getting in the tournament was to be celebrated. And of course still is. It's a great opportunity to play in the NCAA tournament, not to mention get a bunch of TV money.
This year's team currently on the 3 seed line. Isn't that a much better life to live?
And they've been the top overall seed. They've been the number 1-2 seed. They've been the number 1-1 seed. They're on the 3 line. The progression has been remarkable.
Absolutely.
And it's easy to get caught up in expectations. It's easy to get, and I'm going on a tangent here, but it's easy to get caught up in expectations. It's easy to get caught up in, oh, I want these players to stay for an X amount of time. But even having these players, a number of years ago would have been a stretch at best. And now they're coming in. Now they're coming in every single year.
You remember how, and we want to say hello to Miss Julian Lee jumping in on the Facebook comments. You can as well. Miss Julian remembers this, and you do too, how insane we got over getting Colin Sexton's commitment. And Colin was a great player. Absolutely young bull, great player, a lot of fun for his one and done. But the attitude was, holy smokes, I can't believe Alabama got this top 10 player in the class. Well, now, fast forward 5-6 years, Nate Oates is playing with all the top 10 players in the class. Is Alabama getting them all? No, but you're in on them all. You're having conversations with all of them.
You've had a lot of blue chip prospects, McDonald's All-Americans. Alabama is a force in the recruiting scene in college basketball. Absolutely. We're talking about Alabama having top recruiting classes in basketball, the men's and women's, by the way, because the women's team had the number 12 class coming into this year. Alabama is a recruiting powerhouse in basketball. Think about that, 10, 11 years ago.
Be still my beating heart. Will, let's wrap up this basketball discussion by making the picks for the night. I gave my picks yesterday on the show for midweek action, and not too hard. South Carolina and Kentucky both winning last night. South Carolina in a close one with Ole Miss. So both went 2 for 2 last night.
Talk about a win that's aging like the rarest of wines for Alabama.
Yes. You beat South Carolina by 30 points, 4 weeks ago, and that win might win you the whole daggum thing, might win you the league. I'm going to throw these games at you, Will. I picked them yesterday. I'm going to get your picks. We'll go real quick. We'll go LSU at Tennessee, 6 p.m.
Tennessee.
Easy pick. That's the one I made. A&M is at Missouri. Easy pick again.
It's A&M.
There you go. And Georgia is at Mississippi State. Maybe the second hardest game of the night.
I'm going to pick Mississippi State. I've been high on Chris Jans for a long time. That's why I say that. I've been keeping up with him since he was at New Mexico State, and they should have beaten Auburn if they hit their free throws.
I also picked Mississippi State on the show yesterday, so we're in agreement. And lastly, let's get a score for Alabama at Auburn from Will Miller.
Shoot, this is tough. I've been thinking about this all week, and I won't get super long-winded here. But I'm not just going to go off on a rant earlier in the program about the seismic difference home court advantage makes, and in a close matchup, not pick the home team. So I think Auburn is going to win the game. I think it will be by 5 points or under. So another down to the wire contest between these two teams that kind of has everything. You never know what you're going to see on a rivalry game, and I think that's true. Especially, I'm not going to wear out the tired joke of you never know what happens on the plains, but it's not a joke. It's not a joke. It's absolutely the truth. But in some cases, I don't know. It's not a bad game to lose for either team. You're jockeying for the top of the SEC. These are the two best teams of the SEC right now. But I can't envision when you're relying on the shots to fall in a hostile environment, that doesn't always happen. It might happen or it might not. To me, the chance that it might not is too great to definitively say Alabama's going to win the game, and that's why I pick Auburn.
Will, you're getting kicked off the show. No, nobody picks Auburn on this show and survives. You're gone. Goodbye.
Oh, Twitter's going to eviscerate me.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm just teasing. I think that's a perfectly fine pick because, look, Vegas, they're not dummies. They have Auburn as a 5.5-point favorite. I'm sticking with my pick from yesterday's show. I have Alabama 79-77 winning in such a close fashion. And maybe it is my gum glasses making covering up my eyes for that pick. We'll take the Tigers, and I'll take the Tide, and we'll have a great evening. Let's get out of here with a little National Signing Day. We've been talking to Will Miller. You can follow him on Twitter at RealWBMiller. Follow all his work at BamaCentral.com. Let's get out of here with National Signing Day, a very drama-less National Signing Day. Noah Carter, the Washington transferee, sort of. He had already signed his national letter of intent with the Washington Huskies in December, got himself released from that national letter of intent, and now he has signed with the Crimson Tide. QB Reese, linebacker out of Ramsey High School in Birmingham, committed in September, he's signing his letter of intent with the Crimson Tide today. And most importantly, Ryan Williams. Ryan Williams goes from a commitment to a reclassification to a decommitment to a recommitment to I'm signing on Friday to now I'm signing on Wednesday with the rest of the team or rest of the class. Here's my question to you, Will. Is the 2024 class the greatest gift that Nick Saban can give to Kalen DeBoer? Kalen DeBoer, obviously the transition is high, but Kalen DeBoer walked in to a class that had 20 already signatures, 20 early enrollees, 25 signatures, 20 early enrollees. They lost two of them, Jameer Grimsley and Julian Sayin, and obviously wish them well. So now you're down to 18 early enrollees, plus the 5 signatures, and today's 3 gives you 26 prospects. And really, all you had to do was reconvince Ryan Williams and get your boy Noah Carter on board. So you bring Williams back in the fold. You get Noah Carter into the class. Light work for a brand new coach, Nick Saban, gift wrapping the 2024 class to Kalen DeBoer.
Well, I will forever wonder just how much and how impactful Roll Tide Willie was in getting Ryan Williams to recommit. That is a fun storyline to speculate about. I can tell you that. But this 2024 class, it's a cornerstone class in more ways than one. Everybody's questioned whether Alabama could still recruit. They went through the stretch of years with number one recruiting classes, the stretch of consecutive years. That's since been broken. But with all the changes in the sport, would Alabama still be able to recruit? Will they still be able to do this? Now, Nick Saban is retired, obviously turned the sports world on its head. And you expected some departures, some more changes, and that did happen. But to lock the guys down that you do have is a major play. It says Alabama's still going to get those blue chip prospects. They're still going to roll onto the Bryant-Denny Stadium field with some of the best high school players from the preceding year on the team. And, of course, people have all the expectations in the world for Ryan Williams, all the hype in the world for Ryan Williams. He's the man on the marquee. And it was priority. It was basically priority number one at one point in time for Kalen DeBoer and company to bring him back, which they were able to do. And this is Kalen DeBoer.
Here's the deal. Not to cut you off, but I think the fact that the majority of the 24 class was basically already in the bag. And so to give him basically, you got to go chase this one prospect. And he obviously had to go chase him, Ryan Williams. But instead of, you're chasing Ryan Williams and you're chasing Amari Jefferson and you're chasing Rico Scott and you're chasing Jalen Mbakwe, and all of these guys were already basically done and dusted in the fold. And so it just, I think it made it a whole lot easier for the transition. And I think that's important.
Yeah, it is important, and you're right. That's a good way of phrasing things. I don't think Kalen DeBoer himself would describe anything about the last month as easy, but he probably hasn't slept much, truthfully. But yeah, and this is a group that some of them they did commit early, and they have been bought in. Some of them, maybe they wanted to reevaluate things after Nick Saban left. But I think this is a cohesive unit at this point, and they're bought in. And I think this coaching staff is as excited about them as the other way around, because there is a certain level of, okay, this is who I'm riding with. If you're this new coaching staff, they're going to put their trust in us for their college career, even in this transition period. I think that strengthens some things, and the bond they have with their coaches, the bond they have with each other. For them to be locked in beforehand, like you mentioned, only increases that. So I think these types of turbulent moments, these types of things that can happen, it might only make them stronger.
Well, with that track, and that leads me to our final topic here. You can read about it or listen to it on Just a Minute. Today's Bama Central's Just a Minute. Kalen DeBoer has finalized his coaching staff. We'll go right through it real quick, but as we do, think about this. There's 11 names on this list. Who is left off of the on-field coaching staff? All right, as we go through, obviously, head coach Kalen DeBoer, he doesn't count against your on-field staff. Kalen DeBoer is head coach. Ryan Grubb, offensive coordinator. Robert Gillespie, running backs coach. Jamarcus Shepard, wide receivers coach. Scott Huff, offensive line coach. Nick Sheridan, tight ends coach. You flip to the defensive side of the ball. Kane Womack, defensive coordinator. Freddie Roach, defensive line. William Inge, linebackers coach. Maurice Linguist, defensive backs. Colin Hitchler, defensive backs as well. And Jay Nunez is special teams coordinator coming out of the University of Oklahoma. The two newest names are William Inge, linebackers coach / co-DC perhaps, and Jay Nunez from Oklahoma.
You forget the Buffalo coach, Joe?
Maurice Linguist. Did I not say his name? Maurice Linguist, the defensive backs coach from Buffalo, former head coach. So you have 11 guys there. And I see three guys with head coaching experience: DeBoer, Womack, and William Inge, or excuse me, and Maurice Linguist. So three guys with head coaching experience. I see Kane Womack, William Inge, Maurice Linguist, and Colin Hitchler as four guys with defensive coordinator experience. And I see five guys with experience from the University of Washington. Those are kind of the thematics that I see just off the top of my head. But who's left off the field?
I'm not sure. This is a coaching staff that I think has a lot of tremendous name value, and Kalen DeBoer made a statement in that respect as well, especially getting two sitting head coaches to come in and help anchor the defense, which, lost Kevin Steele to retirement, who was an experienced coordinator and a former head coach, and what's almost a past life at this point at the turn of the century with how much the sport has changed since then. Don't believe me? Ask him. Go listen to his Paul Feinbaum interview the other night or earlier on in the week last week about how the sport has changed. But this coaching staff, it has its Washington imprints on it. It has, people coming in from other schools, but this is a star-studded coaching staff. And so I really don't know. I think Kalen DeBoer has made an impact with these hires, and you knew he wanted to, as he's taken over this job, this task of succeeding Nick Saban that ultimately fell to him in an unexpected fashion. But he's finally finished his coaching staff. He was clearly methodical about the process. It took him a while to finally get all his ducks in a row in that regard. And you could tell it's because he wanted to vet people. He wanted to make sure they were a right fit, not just for Alabama, but for Kalen DeBoer's Alabama, for this new, the new, I guess, twists on the program that he is going to have that are unique to him. And of course that's important because, again, you want people that are bought in. I mean, that's all about, recruiting. It applies everywhere. But I think he's done, he's done some remarkable things assembling this coaching staff. Now, of course, we don't know. Do we know for sure who the Seahawks are hiring as the offensive coordinator? Is Ryan Grubb?
No, we don't know for sure. Rumors today are that Chip Kelly is interviewing for the job.
I would have to think he would probably get it.
Right.
And of course, I like Ryan Grubb, but Chip Kelly has 2 NFL head coaching stops on his ledger. So, I mean.
Right. With Ryan Grubb, I think he is a candidate, but he's not the strongest candidate in the field. I think that he's a candidate in the fact that, he's an up-and-comer name. And just like last year, his kind of professional step forward was to interview with Nick Saban, but ultimately not take the job. Well, I think this year his professional step forward is to interview with an NFL an NFL program, but probably not take the job. I mean, if I can I interviewed with the Chicago Bears, Seattle Seahawks, Atlanta Falcons. Even if I don't get that job, that line on my resume boosts everything.
To me, the best candidate was never on the board for Seattle. They wanted to interview Mike Kafka, who has been with the Giants, and they didn't let him. So to me, that was your best candidate right there. Chip Kelly's been out of the NFL for a number of years now since his one and done with the 49ers. And who can blame the 49ers, right? They had to get Kyle Shanahan. It's worked out for him so far.
I'd cut my arm off for Kyle Shanahan in Chicago.
As I'm sure a lot of fans of their respective teams also would. But Ryan Grubb, I think he's been with Kalen DeBoer for such a long time. I mean, they know each other. He is bought into the program and vision of Kalen DeBoer. You don't have to worry about that with him. Bringing him aboard because he's new to Alabama. He's not new to Kalen DeBoer. He's not new to the system. And I agree with you, Joe. I mean, if he, that interview is a good look, and it might give him a better feel for things. It might give him a better feel of, like, I guess if they go over like specific schemes and things in those interviews, which have been known to happen. He might stumble on some form of a eureka moment. So who knows? It could be good in more ways than one, but I don't see him getting the job. But there have been rumors, there have been whispers, and I can tell you one thing. If Ryan Grubb takes the Seattle Seahawks job, I can guarantee you 100% that he will not be on the field in Tuscaloosa next fall.
That would solve that pretty quickly. That would solve that conundrum pretty quickly. Will Miller, it's been a blast hanging out with you today. Make sure you tell everybody where they can find you at Real WB Miller and what you're working on with Bama Central and everything else that you've got going on today.
Yeah, for right now, baseball season right around the corner is going to get started here in Tuscaloosa next Friday, and I will be having comprehensive coverage of baseball season, and that's anything you could hope for, whether that be game coverage, press conferences, features, anything you can think of. Really excited to cover baseball this year, and I'll have regular coverage on that. So be sure to follow me.
Will you let me know if a starting pitcher gets scratched so that I can go place a $100,000 wager on said game? Please let me know.
That's wild that you said that. But the last time that happened, it did not end well for the parties involved. So I don't see myself going in that particular direction.
All right.
Nevertheless,
all right. I don't have $100,000 to lose.
I mean, but in all seriousness, though, it is a new era for Alabama baseball. First year with head coach Rob Vaughn, lots of new faces, but a lot to like. This team's ranked in the preseason. This team's got a lot of hype, optimism after a Supers appearance in 2023, and I think this team's potential is sky high. So, like I said, be sure to keep up with my comprehensive baseball coverage all season long.
Absolutely. We want to encourage you to do that because on the serious side, I think this baseball team has a lot of strong arms, both in starting pitching and in relief with Alton Davis. And then combine that with the wolf pack mentality that old Rob Vaughn is bringing to the plate. I think it might be an exciting time to get out to the Joe. So we will follow Will Miller and all the baseball coverage. We want to remind you that softball is getting started this week as well. Katie Wyndham and the rest of the Bama Central team will have you covered with softball. The rest of our night looks like basketball. Turn it over to Blake Byler 45 on the Twitter machine and Matthew_Gibson as well. Those two guys are going over to Auburn for us right here at BamaCentral.com. We'll be all over it. You can follow all the coverage at BamaCentral.com, at Bama Central on the X/Twitter machine, at Bama Central SI on Instagram, and at Alabama Crimson Tide on Sports Illustrated on Facebook. I've had a lot of fun doing the show today. This was the Joe Gaither Show on Bama Central. You watched us on YouTube, on Facebook, and on Twitter. You can find us at Bama Central on the YouTube channel or at Joe Gaither 6 on all your social media machines. Send me your comments, questions, queries, and complaints. And we'll be back tomorrow. I think we'll have a little Hunter Johnson action. Alabama pre and post game, Alabama basketball pre and post game. So if Alabama wins in the jungle tonight, it'll be a happy Hunter Johnson. If Alabama loses, it might be a little bit of a depressed, suicidal Hunter Johnson, and we will work through it together right here on the Joe Gaither Show on Bama Central and BamaCentral.com.